I've seen buyers spend 7 to 8 figures on real estate in New York City and regret the deal. Not because of the purchase price, but because they underestimated what it would cost to live there every month. My name is Chris Jordan. I'm a luxury real estate agent here in New York City, and my job is to make sure buyers avoid that exact mistake. By the end of this video, you'll have an exact framework that you can use on any New York City home, whether it's a condo, a co-op, a new development, or a townhouse. Let's get into it. So, section 1, let's talk about what carrying costs actually means. A lot of buyers, when they think of carrying costs, they only think about the mortgage. So the mortgage is in it. You got the mortgage, interest, and principals, but you also have common charges or maintenance fees, utilities, property tax, and any additional ownership fees. It's extremely difficult to compare apartments without analyzing all of these things. So, starting with co-op. Co-op have something we call a maintenance fee. And the maintenance fee is usually higher than condos' common charge, but the maintenance fee usually includes property tax. It also often includes heat, hot water, and gas. For the intricates in co-op versus condo, please watch my co-op versus condo video. I went into that more in depth, but let's move on to condos. Condos have lower common charges, as we just spoke about. Property taxes are separate. Utilities are almost always separate as well. So condos are easier to understand for people that's coming out of state because it's just seen as real property. So it's easier to get financing, but the out-of-pocket variability can be higher. And the reason I wanted to start with this is because you can have 2 apartments at the same price with drastically different monthlies depending on the ownership structure. If you have a condo, you may have lower common charges, but you may have higher taxes. So let's move on to breaking down the full monthly cost. When I analyze a deal for a buyer, I break it down into 4 buckets. Starting off with mortgage. The mortgage is dependent on the down payment, the purchase price, the loan type, and the interest rate. Number 2 is common charges or maintenance fee. And I think this is very, very important because I think this is the one thing that buyers greatly underestimate. So, one thing I always check for is 3 things. What does the maintenance fee or common charge include? Because again, going back to the utilities, if it don't include utilities and you gotta pay it separate, that's a separate monthly fee, right? Then, are there planned increases? And for a co-op, is there an underlying mortgage? So let's take a step back, right? I don't want to just brush over that. Are there planned increases? A lot of times, and this can happen in cost, but I see this a lot in new developments where we have a lot of things that's called deferred maintenance, right? In a new development in the beginning, if a building's new, the common charges tend to be lower because the building's new, but as the building ages, common charges go up. So that's what I mean by is there planned increases? Now, when it comes to co-op, is there a deferred mortgage? We went over co-op versus condos. Please watch that video. But the building has a mortgage. And sometimes if a building refinances, it's definitely going to affect your maintenance. So are there planned increases and is there a deferred mortgage are 2 great things to ask yourself in terms of monthlies. Third thing, property taxes. Now for co-ops, you don't really have to worry about this because again, property taxes is gonna be in your maintenance fees, but let's talk about condos. So when it comes to condos and those, I'm gonna try to make this as clear as possible. In New York City, sometimes we have things that's called tax abatements, and it's to incentivize developers to build, right? So let me give you an example. We had a tax abatement, it's called 421A. And I know a buyer that they bought something in 2020 and the taxes was low. Great, awesome, tax abatement, right? And the tax abatement for that building expired in 2022 and their taxes went somewhere around from $800 to I believe $2,200. So again, even though taxes are billed semi-annually, it would definitely behoove you to know the number that you'll be billed when the tax abatement expires. Speaking of tax abatements, that could be a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. But just to explain it a little bit more, again, tax abatements don't just expire citywide, they expire by buildings, things like that. Long story short, I'll say this. If you buying into a building that has a tax abatement that expires in 2030 and you're buying in 2026 and you know you're gonna stay there 10 years, when that tax abatement expires in 2030, please be wary of the number that your taxes are gonna go up to in 2030 because you're still gonna be living there. So don't only account for today's bill, but account for the bill that it'll be after the tax abatement. Preparation is key in real estate. A lot of people just think about today's numbers, but then tomorrow's gonna come, right? I love living in the moment, but sometimes just take a peek in the future because it'll help when the future arrives. So that's what I'll say on tax abatements. Again, tax abatements is a whole nother topic, but those are just some of the things that we deal with here in New York City. The last thing I take a look at is utilities and extras. It can look minuscule on the surface, right? Because we're talking internet, gas, electricity, assessments, parking. Well, parking in New York City can be, again, a video for another time, right? So I say always consider all of those things because individually, you may say, oh yeah, I got a garage, 300. It may look small, but when you add all those things together, it can be significant. So again, electricity, internet, gas, assessments, parking, write that down and understand those numbers because those, again, are numbers that you're gonna be paying monthly as well. So let's talk about how I compare two apartments correctly. So when I'm comparing two apartments, I ignore the initial price at first. The two things I look for is one, what is the monthly total outflow? So we're talking mortgage, we're talking common and maintenance charges, utilities, all the extra things, just all the things we spoke about in the last section. And then immediately after that, I ask, how consistent will this number be? Will there be any changes? Again, tax abatements, deferred maintenance, things like that. Will there be any change? What is the number? And will there be any changes? This price is just the entry. You're going to pay that monthly is gonna show up 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, 84, 96. You're gonna pay that monthly a lot of times. You're gonna see that number a lot of times. So I think you definitely have to be comfortable with that monthly number. That monthly number is so important. I don't think people realize how many times they're gonna come out of pocket and pay that monthly number every single month. Now, let's talk common buyer mistakes. And I don't really like to call them mistakes. I like to call them mishaps, right? Because a lot of people, again, New York City is a very complex real estate market. It's unlike anywhere else in the world. So it's not really a mistake if you don't know. Now, if you watched up to this point and you still make the things we talked about, then it becomes a mistake, but I like to call it mishaps, right? So let's talk common buyer mistakes / mishaps. Mistakes if you watched it up here and you do it again, mishaps if you don't know. So mishap / mistake one, just like we spoke about, falling in love with low common charges. And hopefully we have no developers that watch to this point. I do think sometimes they start off with low common charges because the building's new, right? But I also know some developers make low common charges for marketing purposes. They know people are gonna buy into the building. Once they see those low common numbers, they know it's a great selling point. And they know once people are in the building, it's less likely that they're gonna move out because the common charge increase, right? It's almost like why people give free trials, month free trials, things like that. So always know the increases. The second thing is ignoring upcoming assessments. And then lastly, just like we spoke about, not understanding how much taxes you're gonna pay once the abatement expires. Now, those are three very important things. And those are three mistakes I see people make every single day. So, as promised, we've reached the end. So let's talk about the final framework. Let's talk how I go through it with buyers. We ask one question. Everything we spoke about, we put it on paper. We get that one monthly number and we circle it. And this is what I want you to do, right? I want you to list everything we spoke about. It's the last framework that I promised in the intro. Everything we spoke about, and you put that number. You can even build in a little bit of margin, right? But if you was very careful and very intentional with the numbers, you should be very close to your monthly number. So that monthly number, you circle it and you ask yourself one question. This is what I tell all my buyers, ask yourself one question. If nothing changes in my life, am I comfortable with that number? And if the answer is yes, you have yourself a great deal. If you're not comfortable with that number, then you have to reassess some things, and that's okay. But that's the one framework that I think works. And in my opinion, I think people that's comfortable with that number, they're comfortable with the deal. My name is Chris Jordan. I'm a luxury real estate agent here in New York City. If you have any other specific questions, never hesitate to email me. My email will be right here. If you love this video, please watch the next video that's on the screen. And thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys on the next video.